We've had the Horus Heresy, we've had the Siege of Terra. Was it all worth it?
Welcome back to the Kieran Show. This week we are talking about the Siege of Terra.
And was it all worth it?
So it's been nearly 20 years that this journey has been ongoing. So Horus Rising was released in 2006.
Crikey.
It's now 2024.
Ugh.
And we've just had the end of it.
Thank God as well.
And the death.
The end, yeah. That was mentioned so many times in those three books. So many times. Essentially what we want to go over is not the whole of the Horus Heresy. I think for us it was more of a capture of the Siege of Terra, and was the Siege of Terra worth the wait?
Was it worth the climax for that long a time?
Yeah. I just straight off the bat, I don't know.
Yeah, I think, spoiler alert, the answer to this video is I don't know whether it was.
So we've been waiting to do this video, well I say we, I've been waiting to do this video for a long time because I audibled it when it first came out, so I binged it in a week and then it was done. Kieran's been reading all of them like the champion he is, and he just finished yesterday.
Technically today, because I finished it at 5 past midnight.
Yeah. I mean, just straight out the bat, what do you think of the last book of Siege of Terra?
Oh my God. The fight, for me... Like, I'm trying to look at this objectively, that it was never going to live up to the expectations of nearly 20 years of Warhammer hobby.
Yeah.
It was never going to live up to the expectations, and it was never going to be written in a way that's going to please everybody. Taking all that into consideration, I still think the fight with Sanguinius was country miles better.
Sanguinius and who, just for context?
Horus.
Yeah.
Was country miles better than Daddy E and Horus fighting out. The problem, get right into it. The problem I had with this fight is that because it had to happen on so many different planes of existence and all of this, my brain's bigger than your brain. It was really hard to follow what was going on. Whereas when you read Horus and Sanguinius fighting, it was no, he hits him with his sword. He hits him with his mace. Yeah. You can, in your mind's eye, you can follow it along. When you've got all the various aspects of Big Daddy E and these different planes of existence, it's just hard to follow.
Yeah, I did find that because the Sanguinius fight was a bit more desperate, and it was like...
he's going to win, he's going to win, he's not going to win.
Well,
then he really doesn't win.
Yeah, there was like a glimmer of hope, and then it was like, oh no, you can't win. Oh no, you're not winning. Oh no, he is absolutely beating you into next week. And with the Emperor and Horus, it was like...
It's always going to go one way, wasn't it?
Yeah. I think for me, the moment that really got me was when they stopped fighting and then went Yu-Gi-Oh! And they went, I summon Pot of Greed and draw 3 additional cards from my deck. I was like, what is going on? When they started playing... I didn't realise that tarot cards were like a card game.
It's when they start throwing them at each other like they're knives.
Like ninja stars. Who just like, take this, Horus. Oh, no. It really was a lot, and during that period, I had to rewind just to make sure that that's what I'd heard. Yeah. I was like, "What? Why did they stop fighting?"
Yeah, the Yu-Gi-Oh fight aside,
it's almost like they did that as a rest. They just went, "Oh, we're both exhausted. Let's play cards."
I think it's because so they made a lot of the tarot cards all through the Siege of Terra, so I get why they included it. You know, they had Ahriman playing sevens with Cinderman in the church.
Go fish, Cinderman. No.
Oh no, it's always the Mad King. The Dark King, rather, not the Mad King.
That was class, by the way. So I remember when Ahriman popped up and I was like, well, suddenly I'm interested. I think that was in book 2, wasn't it?
Yeah, so...
I was like, oh, my boy, he's back.
Yeah. Just judging the last 3 books as a whole, I nicknamed it The End and the Filler.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot.
Yeah. It was too much.
At least 60% of the second book is filler.
Yeah, just hated it. Like I think, no, hate's a strong word. It's
not hate. No,
I think so this happens quite a lot in Black Library books when certain authors, not naming names, go into so much detail where they're like, this isn't a grey wall. The wall is slightly grey, not grey enough, not graphite grey. The grey that is slightly darker than the Dulux colour paint chart grey. My lord, actually, no, this wall is grey. And I'm just like, please.
It's some Tolkien level of description, isn't it?
Sometimes it felt like a bit of a word count. And I'm like, it didn't feel like it was 100% necessary, and I understand that we've got 20 odd years, and how many books in total? Like 60 now?
54, I think, is purely the Horus Heresy, and then there is
So
10 for
64.
Siege.
So 64 in total.
That doesn't include all of the audio dramas or novellas and everything else.
Yeah, so I understand that's really hard to do. That's really hard. I think my worry with some of those books that it was like, obviously the pacing I think was fine. The only book in the Siege of Terra I didn't really like was Mortis.
Yeah, we'll talk about the Siege. I like our standout books and least favourites in a minute.
Yeah, for sure. And I just think especially in the ending trilogy, should have been 2.
It should have been 1.
I don't think it should have been 1. I think there was
I don't know. I think there's a lot of storylines, I think, for me, that you could cut out. Like the whole thing with Foe and him making the tool that's going to kill everybody. And I'm guessing that's going to lean into something in the future. I don't
know. I think there was a lot of like big events though that happened. So like Ahriman discovering who the Dark King was, Emperor going like full 180, Horus, essentially having like this open maze in his ship, Abaddon coming back. I've only been in this for like 2 years. Like I've only been reading Horus Heresy books for 2 years, so I wasn't maybe as invested. And I think what I was hoping for was retcons. So, like for example, we were talking about Sanguinius succumbing to the Black Rage, when in actuality
it goes exactly the way it's supposed to go.
Yeah, and I was fine with it, but a very small part of me was like, meh, fine. And
I think
what I did really love about that was at the beginning of the 3rd book when End of the Death Part 3, when Sanguinius had died, and then all the Blood Angels went nuts.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that. However, it was too long. There were too many descriptions.
So, I don't know. I really liked it because it wasn't just like, oh, everyone's mad and now they're fine again. It was like we're fighting an enemy that is just so blood. What do they call it? Like a blood frenzy or something?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a lot. It was really cool though. But
I think because there weren't any retcons, and I guess on reflection there never was going to be, because you've got so much. Like when I was reading End of the Death Volume 2, I was like, is this fight with Horus? So we've had, and I think a lot of the internet has had a theory that Sanguinius will die, succumb to the Black Rage, kill Horus, and then it's Sanguinius and the Emperor, and he has to put the Emperor down. I mean, on reflection, it's too big of a change for the whole Warhammer universe, but I just think that would have been cool.
I think Sanguinius sort of one-man armied the majority of the Siege of Terra anyway.
I was going to say, we'll get into that now. Sanguinius, country miles, the best character in the whole of the Siege of Terra.
It's very hard to disagree with you.
Second, behind him, Rogel Dawn. The guy he's likeable, which is hilarious.
Yeah, I tell you, the bit with Rogel Dawn that I did really like, I think Cinderman is stood on the very top of the palace and he's about to jump off, or like considering it, and Rogel Dawn has this real like heart to heart.
Yeah.
It's at the beginning, I can't remember which book it is, but they have like this moment of like, I don't know, like where he's scared, where he understands what fear is.
Yeah.
And I thought that was so well written. I really loved that. But yeah, Rogel Dawn I think is great up until the point where he's trapped in Horus's like.
That goes on for too long. I think he's trapped. There's too many chapters of him being trapped.
I think that's the case for a lot of.
It's a case for there are chapters for chapters' sake. Like before Ahriman turns up and talks to Cinderman, there's too much of them just walking around trying to find a book.
Yeah.
For me, The End and the Death Volume 2 was a slog until that chapter when Ahriman walks in the door. It's almost like the couple of chapters that before that were supposed to be the start of the book.
Yeah.
And then it's been padded out because as soon as Ahriman walks in the door, the whole book levels up.
Yeah, it does.
He discovers that there's actual movement on the vengeful spirit. Like Sanguinius stops talking to Ferrus Manus and actually starts to do things.
So I did quite like that though. I thought that was
cool,
cool.
for like 2 chapters, not for the sheer volume.
It should have been a chapter. It shouldn't have been any longer than that. I think it was it was really interesting. I think seeing those characters like Sanguinius develop, and at Dawn, like sort of hearing the whispers of corn in the desert and stuff. Like I thought it was cool. I did think it was cool. I just think it went on for so long, and I was like, "Are you doing anything? No, you're still trapped. No, you're thinking about shouting."
See,
blood for the
I'm
blood
very
god,
conscious,
fine.
but now judging the whole of the Siege of Terra based on that last book or two.
Yeah, so let's jump in it. Let's have some positivity. What were your top 3 books?
Top 3 books, and Echoes of Eternity
Yeah,
was.
yeah.
It sounds hilarious to talk about this, but it was mind blowing.
It blew my fragile little mind.
It was so good.
Yeah.
There was not a bad chapter in that book. And that's funny because it's a weighty tome. There's a lot in there.
Yeah.
It's all power all the way through. There's no there might be on reflection there probably is a couple of chapters where it brings the tone down or whatever, but that book is just it's the fight with Cabanda and then the fight with Angron and then it's the door closing and it ends at the perfect time. The problem I had later on in the series with the end of the Death 3 is that, Horus dies and Daddy E's on the floor, but then there's still like 10 chapters after that.
Yeah, it's a lot.
I think they either needed to go and put that at the end of that fight, do like a Lord of the Rings style with the Return of the King. They finish that fight in the middle of the volume 3, and the rest is the mop up, and give the mop up what it deserves, not the 10 chapters afterwards.
I think what they've done there though is left it so open ended because they're now going to launch the Scouring and
60-book series coming to you. Echoes
we'll talk about that in a second. But Echoes of Eternity.
Echoes of Eternity. The last half of End in the Death 2 is definitely up there because the fight with Sanguinius is good, but the rest of that book is hard to judge. I really enjoyed the Solar War. I think it does a really good job of setting the scene for the whole thing. Everybody, it takes place at the fringes of the galaxy before, and then they start to warp in, and it's very good scene setting, and it's not long. And The Lost and the Damned is a great book. Katsuhiro is the only Imperial Guard character I've ever liked.
So there's a special shout out for Katsuhiro because he was like one of the big players throughout this whole thing. He wasn't.
He was just this guy.
But that's what I mean. He was just so normal the entire way through, and I was like, wow, good for you, man.
Yeah, I think my top 3. I can't put them in order because it changes. Would be Echoes of Eternity, The Lost and the Damned, and some version of The End of the Death. It has to be in there because there's a lot in there.
Crazy to me.
Also, right, I'm going to say it now. Why doesn't Malkador be quiet? There are again. It goes
Vulcan.
back. Yeah, it goes into
can you hear me?
Chapters for chapter's sake for him. I get it. He's on the throne. There is a lot of him talking to himself.
It is very ironic that it was called The End of the Death because nothing ended and no one died for a long time, and I was just like, please.
Yeah, they all die. In the space of 5 pages.
By the end of the second book, I was like, Malkador, if you could just die, that would be wonderful. Yeah, my favourite was Warhawk.
Oh, he's such a simp for
Jagatai versus Mortarion. To be fair, Jagatai was one of my standouts from this series.
Yeah, but then he
thought
just
was lush.
flies off into obscurity. Goes, oh, he's injured. Oh, he's in a room somewhere and never comes back.
No, wrong. But yeah, wicked.
In essence,
wicked
compared
cool.
to the grandeur of the Siege of Terra, he doesn't come back again.
Echoes is great. I'm choosing to ignore you now. Echoes is great.
You just don't be annoyed.
And Saturnine was the other one.
Saturnine is very good.
Saturnine was great. So yeah, they were my top 3 for sure. Top 3 characters.
Bird Boy,
Okay.
obviously. The Perpetuals, I'm going to put them all as one. Mm-hmm. John Grammaticus and Ol. Their storyline is really good. And think for me personally as well, when I first started reading Horus Heresy, that whole storyline was a slog. And then the Siege of Terra is like, no, we need to make more. We need to put this together. And they do. Their story is really good. Where they meet Litu and everything, that's all great. So I'm going to lump those 2 together. And the third, probably Rogel Dawn.
Yeah.
Just because I didn't like him before the Siege of Terra, and after that, I was like, I want to give you a cuddle. It's okay.
Grief.
You did your best. What about you? What's your top 3?
Jagatai Khan,
Obviously.
Sanguinius, Sigismund. Sigismund absolutely leveled up. The Emperor just went, here's the sword. Rogel Dawn was like, what? And then Sigismund was like, follow me.
See, Sigismund really does level up, but I think for me they don't make enough of him.
I'm fine with that because we see what happens afterwards in like Talon of Horus and stuff, where like
Yeah.
after, I don't know. I think for him to just be given the sword, I was like, all right, fine, really cool.
It's great. It's great character building.
Yeah.
Back-
Special shout out for Shibin Khan. He was the only character in
The
Mortis.
ultimate babysitter.
He was the only character in Mortis where I was like, this is sick. Like him just wandering across like an apocalyptic wasteland
With a baby.
With a baby. I was like, can this just be its own thing? I want more parent-child story. Hang on. No, let me rephrase that. I want more characters that are just like protecting something on like this epic journey. That was awesome.
I think we need to talk about Mortis
Okay.
because that book does nothing.
I think it does, but I didn't like what it did.
Does for the
I didn't
whole
like the Knights.
Titan, you mean?
It's the same thing to me.
Titans, Knights. The only thing that book does is open a hole in the wall.
Bring on the wall.
That's all it does.
Yeah.
For the whole, because the Titans don't really play a scene again.
Yeah, and Shibin protects the baby, and then
Yeah,
gives
that's
it to,
literally
and
it.
then gives it to Katsuhiro.
Oh, and First Wall wasn't a great book.
I don't really remember a lot from that one. It's the one when the Iron Warriors and the Imperial Fist fight for the first time, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like Fafnir Ran gets his axes out, and he's like, "Come on, man,
Go figure out.
come on, man."
Oh,
yeah, I
and
thought it was
also
fine.
going back to characters, Khan is a special mention.
Yeah,
He's
he's one of the only world eaters that I was like, oh, cool.
Oh, when what's her name? Oh, their name's falling out of my brain. The one in charge of the ship, and then she realizes she's actually dead.
Yeah,
She goes full Sixth Sense.
I can't remember what she's called.
Not Genetia.
Oh, I hadn't even searched it.
Sarin.
Latara Sarin. Yeah, that's her name. Yeah, she was wicked cool.
Latara Sarin, yeah, that was it. When she realizes that she's Bruce Willis in the Sixth Sense.
I know it. I'm dead.
Yeah, no, that was great.
So just to touch back on the scouring, I haven't read any Warhammer stuff since End of the Death 3. I need a break.
I'm not reading anything.
I feel so hungover from it that I'm just a bit like...
You feel hungover? You haven't even read The Horus Heresy.
Maybe. Well, I've read them all in a 2-year spat. Well, not all of them. I've read the ones...
You've read like 10 Horus Heresy
I've
books.
read the ones I wanted to read.
So I haven't finished the Horus Heresy because I just got to the point where I was like, oh, I'm done now. I've done 44 of the Horus Heresy books.
And how many of those can you remember?
About 10. there is so much
it's
rubbishness in
the
there.
end and the filler, you might call it. But yeah.
It's mad to think that Horus Rising did come out in 2006 and it's now 2024 and we've just finished that whole series.
Yeah. I think the one thing I am excited for with the scouring is seeing what Gilliman is like touching down and being like, oh, firstly, I'm late, sorry. But secondly, how he sort of builds that up and then splits each legion and stuff, and then chasing down the remnants of chaos. I think that would be quite cool, and like the Dark Mechanicum, how they sort of hide those.
They've got to fix Mars and all sorts.
Yeah, I think there are certainly some cool bits. I'm just a bit worried / apprehensive. Maybe it's because I feel hungover, as I've already mentioned. That it's going to be another crazy book series that I just don't know how ready I am for.
It's going to be another 60-book series coming out over 20 years.
I just don't know if I'm ready for that or want that. I think that's the important thing.
5 books, Games Workshop. 5 books for the scouring. Just give us that.
They made End in the Death into 3. Siege of Terra was 10. That doesn't include Fury of Magnus, by the way. Great book. Loved that to bits.
Also, while we're talking about the books...
Oh, and Garrow. That was really cool.
I haven't done any of the add-ons yet. So I haven't done Fury of Magnus or anything yet.
Mate, great.
The physical books, so I don't like hardback books, and I think a lot of people like this because you can't read them because they're so stiff. However, whoever Games Workshop's using for the printing of the Siege of Terra for their hardbacks, excellent.
Top drawer.
The quality in the pages, you can actually read the ones that are nearer the letters that are nearer the margins, not like normal with a hardback. And also, I don't know whether these are in the paperback version, but the art prints that are in them, phenomenal.
Yeah, beautiful. I think Warhammer always nails that though. The artwork is always so great.
It's always
I do
level.
wish that they would tag like the artists.
Let's not get into that.
I just think I'd like to, because I follow quite a lot of these artists on Instagram, and they are phenomenally talented. That's all I want, just like a little bottom right-hand corner, just be like, just say what their name is. And then I can go and look at all the other amazing artwork that they do. But
that's another
video.
So to sum it up, was it worth it for you after reading all the 10 Horus Heresy books that you've read? Do you feel that your vestiture has paid off?
Do I feel satisfied?
Yes.
No.
Yeah, I don't feel satisfied.
No.
Come the end of that.
And it's because I didn't get any sense of closure. If they had first...
You don't even...
We haven't even spoken about Loken. They did that boy dirty. And it was like one last...
Erebus.
Yeah, it was like... Stab, stab, stab. It was like one last little ploy for being like, oh, everyone, you should hate Erebus. Just... Now he's going to kill.
Now, if we're on to things that we didn't like...
Oh, God.
There's a lot in End in the Death 3, actually, that I didn't like.
Tarot cards.
Tarot cards, I like Yu-Gi-Oh, so I'm here for it.
So
the fact that the Emperor doesn't have a conversation with Horus really wound me up. I get that he's this obnoxious, monstrous dictator. I mean, you get a couple of words before he kills him, but to not have any form of conversation.
I did like that he didn't cry over Sanguinius. I thought that, for me, showed...
Well, it's because he flings off his soul, doesn't he? It's off in the thing.
Yeah.
Off in the warp. But
yeah,
I think
thought that was a lot.
A conversation, just from the reader's perspective, I think could have been cool. Because, Sanguinius and...
When you say conversation, what do you mean?
Just as a, what are you doing?
Oh, I see. I think it is too far gone for that, though.
Yeah, again, this brings into my biggest criticism of that fight. That fight happens on too many planes of existence where voice clearly doesn't register.
Yeah.
And also, you don't get any of him being interred on the Golden Throne.
Well, that'll be the scouring, though, won't it?
Probably its own book.
Yeah. Worst. But
I would have liked that in there, that the parting shot for the whole of the Siege of Terra was him on the throne.
Yeah.
That would have been a better last chapter for me.
And you know what? That's the only reason why it's not worth it for me. Like, there are some books...
The payoff isn't there.
Yeah, some of the books are phenomenally cool, and I think it's my only... maybe not my only, but it's one of my biggest criticisms with Warhammer, is there's no closure for anything. And I just think...
Just to make you buy the models and make the closure yourself.
But it's the thing I don't like, and it doesn't make sense from storytelling. It needs to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And I think some of the characters die, but the story keeps going. And I think, like, as poetic as that might be, there's not like, I don't know. The end in the death should have been the Emperor being put on the Golden Throne and everybody around him being like, this is horrendous, this is the worst, oh my God. Like the start of all those like thousands of people dying just to keep him alive.
Yeah.
It should have been
this setup for 40k.
Yeah, it should have been this like huge grand spectacle for everyone to be like, that was harrowing, now it's the end.
Yeah.
And I just feel like for a book that's called The End and the Death...
There isn't an end.
No, there isn't. It was so confusing.
I mean, I guess it was never going to link into 40k because there is still 10,000 years in between, isn't there? But there could have been more threads set up.
Just to emphasise, like, it didn't have to end 30k. It didn't. Like, because we've still got all these other stories that we need to jump into. I just think a grand, like... As you mentioned, like, even if the Emperor had been off the Yu-Gi-Oh, kill him earlier, and then have like 2-3 chapters of him going back to Terra, being put on the throne, and like, it's awful.
Yeah.
Awful. As in like harrowing, as in like, it's like blood curdling descriptions where you are like, it's over.
Yeah.
I just think it would have been so much more impactful, and then I would have been like, phenomenal.
It was never gonna be as impactful as you wanted it to. Again, like I've said at least 2 million times in this video, when you're sitting on 20 years, it was never going to be the payoff. It's the same when all of these games get remastered; they don't hit the way you want them to.
No, I think what I am very, very curious to hear though is everyone's opinions in the comments, like, because
Yeah, what did you think of the Siege of Terra as a whole?
let us know, because that's what I think. You know, we love interacting with you guys in the comment section anyway. But I think for something this important to a lot of people, and as you've already mentioned, like, you've been doing this for a very, very long time. If anything, I'm not. I shouldn't be as invested because I've only been doing this for 2 years, but I've read so much. There isn't another book series that I've read this many books, so I'm like,
No. Whenever I have a conversation with people like
Yeah.
about books, like, oh, what series are you reading? I'm reading a Warhammer series, and it's 55 books long.
stupid, absolutely stupid. I've got favourite characters who have great arcs, but there's never really any closure.
Speaking of closure, this is the end of the end in the video.
The end in the video.
Thank you to all of these people.
You guys rock. You
Yeah.
are.
Come and join us on YouTube memberships and Patreon.
Please
if you
do.
want.
Yeah.
And check out the affiliate links to go and buy the Siege of Terra books if they're still in stock.
As Kira mentioned earlier, if you'd like to get some closure for yourself and narrate and orchestrate your own end in the death, use all of the miniatures in the links below.
Yeah.
Farsight will ascend the throne. Booyah!
Right, and on that note, it's time to end.
Bye!